Welcome back, everybody. I'm excited for today's deep dive because it's all about Thanksgiving.
Sounds delicious.
Well, sort of, I guess.
I don't
Well,
know.
but it's more than just the food. We've got this podcast script all about Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Fun facts, traditions, stories, you name it. And it's a little bit meta.
Meta, how so?
Well, it's a podcast script about a podcast.
I
So yeah, we're going to use this script to really deep dive into the holiday itself.
I like it. Using a podcast script as a lens to examine Thanksgiving.
Exactly. And honestly, I've already learned some pretty crazy things.
Yeah.
Did you know Thanksgiving wasn't always about turkey?
You're kidding.
Nope. And get this, it wasn't even a national holiday until the Civil War.
Wow. Those are some serious Thanksgiving trivia bombs right there.
I know, right? So get ready to impress your family with your Thanksgiving knowledge this year.
All right, let's do it.
So let's rewind all the way back to that very first Thanksgiving in 1621.
Ah, yes. The Pilgrims and the Wampanoag.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I bet you're picturing a big, juicy turkey as the centerpiece.
Well, yeah, isn't that what Thanksgiving is all about?
Not so fast. Apparently, they probably ate way more seafood than turkey.
Seafood for Thanksgiving. Now that's a twist.
I know. It makes sense, though, when you think about it. Plymouth, Massachusetts is right on the coast.
True. So what kind of seafood are we talking about?
Well, the script mentions things like lobster, clams, fish, all that good stuff.
So basically a New England clam bake.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So how did we go from a seafood feast to the turkey-centric Thanksgiving we know and love today?
Well, I think there are a couple of things at play. One is simply the availability of turkey. As America grew and expanded, turkey farming became more widespread and turkey became more affordable.
That makes sense. It's like the classic American symbol of abundance.
Exactly. But the other big shift was Thanksgiving becoming a national holiday, and that's where Abraham Lincoln comes in.
Oh yeah, 1863, right in the middle of the Civil War.
That's right. The country was deeply divided, and Lincoln was looking for a way to unite the nation. He saw Thanksgiving as an opportunity to bring people together around a shared sense of gratitude and national identity.
So he used Thanksgiving as a tool for healing and unity. It's pretty powerful.
It is. And it's a reminder that Thanksgiving has always been more than just a meal. It's a holiday with a lot of cultural and historical significance.
But did it actually work? I mean, could a holiday really bridge the deep divides of the Civil War?
That's a question historians still debate today. Some argue that Thanksgiving did play a role, however small, in fostering a sense of national unity. Others say its impact was minimal given the intense political and social turmoil of the time.
So it's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that Thanksgiving was still evolving as a tradition back then. It wasn't the big unifying event that it is today.
I never really thought about that. I guess we tend to view Thanksgiving through the lens of our own experiences.
Right. We see it as this timeless tradition, but in reality, it has its own history and it's constantly evolving.
That's a really good point. So speaking of evolution, let's move on to some of the iconic Thanksgiving traditions that we know and love today.
Like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Oh yeah, the giant balloons, the floats, the marching bands. It's such a spectacle.
It all started back in 1924. And believe it or not, it's been held every year since then, except for a brief pause during World War II.
Can you imagine being there for the very first parade?
I bet it was quite a sight to see. Imagine those massive balloons making their way down the streets of New York City for the first time.
And then a few decades later, they introduce a giant Snoopy balloon.
It must have been a sensation. That first appearance of Snoopy would have been a major event.
And of course, you can't forget about the NFL games on Thanksgiving.
Ah, yes, another beloved tradition. The first one was played way back in 1920, and the Detroit Lions have been playing every year since.
So that's almost as old as the parade itself, although maybe not as consistently satisfying for Lions fans.
Well, some traditions are more about the ritual than the outcome.
Very true. Speaking of traditions, what about the presidential turkey pardon?
Ah, yes. That's a relatively new one. The first turkey was pardoned by President George H.W. Bush back in 1989.
And now it's something that every president does. It's kind of a funny tradition, isn't it? This whole ceremony centered around sparing the life of a single turkey.
It is a bit quirky, but I think it's become this lighthearted symbol of Thanksgiving, a gesture of mercy and gratitude.
But it also makes you think about our relationship with animals, especially those raised for food.
Right. Why do we single out one turkey for this special treatment? Is it a way of acknowledging our own ambivalence about the consumption of animals? It's an interesting question.
It definitely makes you pause and consider the bigger picture. But you know, it wouldn't be Thanksgiving without a little trivia.
Are you up for a challenge?
Bring it on. Feeling pretty confident after all this Thanksgiving knowledge we've been absorbing.
All right, first riddle. What has feathers but can't fly is often stuffed and is the star of the Thanksgiving meal?
Feathers but can't fly, stuffed star of the meal. Okay, that's got to be the turkey.
You got it. Even with all that seafood at the first Thanksgiving, the turkey eventually took center stage.
Okay, I'm ready for the next one.
All right, here it is. I'm red and sweet, but not a dessert. You'll find me next to the turkey on the Thanksgiving table. What am I?
Ooh, this one is tricky. Red and sweet, but not dessert. Is it cranberry sauce? I mean, it's not exactly a dessert, but it's definitely sweet, and it's always there next to the turkey.
You nailed it. Cranberry sauce, a Thanksgiving staple, even though people tend to have strong opinions about it. Some love it, some hate it, but it's always there.
Right, feel good about those riddles. What about the quiz questions?
Okay, first quiz question. Which U.S. president famously pardoned the first turkey?
Let's see, we were just talking about this. It was George H.W. Bush, right back in 1989, starting this whole quirky tradition.
You're on a roll. Last question. Which state produces the most turkeys in the U.S.?
Now, this one is tough. I know it's not a coastal state, because we talked about how seafood was more common in the early days. But which state is turkey central?
This is where it gets interesting. The answer is Minnesota. They produce over 40 million turkeys annually, more than any other state.
Minnesota. Really? I never would have guessed that. Why Minnesota? Is there something special about the climate or the land there that makes it ideal for raising turkeys?
It's a combination of factors. Minnesota has a long history of agriculture, and the climate is actually well suited for turkey farming. They have cold winters, which help control diseases, and warm summers, which are ideal for raising turkeys outdoors. Plus, they have a strong infrastructure for feed production and processing.
So it's not just a random coincidence. There's a whole network of factors that contribute to Minnesota's dominance in the turkey industry.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that even something as simple as a Thanksgiving turkey has a complex story behind it. There's a whole system of production, distribution, and economics that bring that turkey to your table.
It makes you appreciate that turkey a little bit more, knowing all the work that goes into it. So what does this all mean? We've uncovered some surprising facts about Thanksgiving, explored its traditions, and even tested our knowledge with trivia. What are the key takeaways from our deep dive into this podcast script about Thanksgiving?
Well, one thing that stands out to me is the evolution of Thanksgiving. We started with a very different picture of that first Thanksgiving seafood instead of turkey. And then we saw how the holiday itself evolved, becoming a national symbol of unity, even if its impact in that regard is debated by historians.
And we explored how those iconic traditions, the parade, the football games, the turkey pardon, all add to the tapestry of Thanksgiving, giving it different layers of meaning and symbolism.
But maybe the most important takeaway is how much there is to learn even about something as familiar as Thanksgiving. We often take traditions for granted, but when you dig a little deeper, you find these fascinating stories and connections that you never knew existed.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to the thought-provoking question that our source material leaves us with. The script touches on how Thanksgiving has changed over time, but it doesn't explicitly answer the question of what those changes say about American culture and values.
Right. How has the meaning and celebration of Thanksgiving evolved over the centuries? Have we stayed true to the original spirit of the holiday, or has it become something different? And if it has changed, what does that tell us about ourselves as a society?
It's a question worth pondering as we gather with loved ones and give thanks for all that we have.
It certainly is.
So what do you think about all of this? How's Thanksgiving changed, and what do those changes mean for us today?
Well, that's a big question, and I don't think there's a simple answer. But maybe that's part of what makes Thanksgiving so interesting. It's a holiday that's constantly evolving, reflecting the changes in our society and our values.
I agree. And I think it's important to have these conversations to really dig into the meaning of Thanksgiving and what it represents for us today.
Absolutely. So let's keep the conversation going. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the evolution of Thanksgiving. What are your favorite traditions, and how do you make the holiday meaningful for you and your loved ones?
We've explored the history, the traditions, and the deeper meaning of Thanksgiving. We've uncovered some surprising facts, challenged our assumptions, and hopefully gained a new appreciation for this iconic American holiday. But the conversation doesn't end here. We want to hear your perspectives, your stories, and your reflections on this Thanksgiving season.
And from both of us, we wish you a very happy Thanksgiving filled with joy, gratitude, and meaningful connections. Remember to savor the moments, appreciate the simple things, and take time to reflect on all that you are thankful for.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
It really does make you think, huh?
Yeah.
But hey, it wouldn't be Thanksgiving without some trivia, right?
Oh, you know I love a good trivia challenge. Hit me.
Okay, so our source material has some fun riddles and quiz questions. Let's see if you can get these.
All right, bring it on.
First riddle: what has feathers but can't fly, is often stuffed, and is the star of the Thanksgiving meal?
Feathers but can't fly. Stuffed star of the meal. That's gotta be the turkey, right?
Ding, ding, ding. You got it. All right, give me another one.
Okay, riddle number 2. I'm red and sweet, but not a dessert. You'll find me next to the turkey on the Thanksgiving table. What am I?
Ooh. Okay, red and sweet, but not dessert. What could that be? Oh, is it cranberry sauce?
That's right, cranberry sauce. It's not really a dessert, but it's definitely sweet, and it's always there next to the turkey.
All right, so 2 for 2. Let's try a quiz question.
Okay, here's your first quiz question. Which U.S. president famously pardoned the first turkey?
Which president pardoned the first turkey? Wasn't it George H.W. Bush?
Yes. You got it, George H.W. Bush, back in 1989. He started this whole quirky tradition.
Okay, last quiz question. I'm ready.
All right, which state produces the most turkeys in the U.S.?
Most turkeys in the U.S.
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I don't know. I'm going to guess Texas.
That's a good guess, but it's actually Minnesota. They produce over 40 million turkeys annually, more than any other state.
Minnesota.
Wow.
Never would have guessed that. What
Yeah.
makes Minnesota such a turkey powerhouse?
Well, it's a combination of factors. They've got a long history of agriculture, and the climate is actually perfect for raising turkeys. Cold winters to help control diseases and warm summers that are great for raising them outdoors. Plus, they've got a really strong infrastructure for feed production and processing.
So it's not just a coincidence. There's a whole system in place that makes Minnesota the turkey capital of the U.S.
Exactly. And it's a good reminder that even something as simple as a Thanksgiving turkey has a whole complex story behind it.
That's true. You know, it's funny. We started this deep dive talking about how Thanksgiving wasn't always about turkey. And now here we are learning all about the state that produces the most turkeys.
It's all connected, right? The history, the traditions, the food, it all comes together to create this rich tapestry that is Thanksgiving.
I like that, a rich tapestry. So what does all of this tell us about Thanksgiving today? What are some of the key takeaways from our deep dive into this podcast script?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is that Thanksgiving is constantly evolving. What started as a simple harvest feast has transformed into this national holiday with all sorts of traditions and symbolism.
And it's not just about the food.
Yeah.
It's about the history, the family, the gratitude,
Yeah.
the whole experience.
Exactly. And I think another key takeaway is that there's always more to learn, even about something as familiar as Thanksgiving.
That's so true. We often take these traditions for granted, but when you really dig in, there's so much fascinating history and cultural significance.
Absolutely. And I think our source material raises a really important question about how these changes in Thanksgiving reflect broader changes in American culture and values.
Right. The script mentions how Thanksgiving has changed over time, but it doesn't really answer the question of what those changes mean for us as a society.
Exactly. How has the meaning and celebration of Thanksgiving evolved over the centuries? Have we stayed true to the original spirit of the holiday, or has it become something different? And if it has changed, what does that tell us about ourselves as a society?
That's a really thought-provoking question, and I think it's one that's worth exploring further.
Yeah, it really gets you thinking, doesn't it? On the one hand, Thanksgiving is this time for family and gratitude and reflection. But then, on the other hand, it's become so commercialized.
It's true. It's like Black Friday sales are starting earlier and earlier. Thanksgiving almost feels like a prelude to Christmas shopping sometimes.
And all that shopping and travel can add a lot of stress, too. It can feel like we're losing sight of the real meaning of Thanksgiving.
I think that tension between the traditional values of Thanksgiving and the realities of modern life is something a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, it's like, how do we hold on to the heart of the holiday while also acknowledging how much things have changed?
Right. Well, the source material mentions how Thanksgiving has evolved over time, but it doesn't really say what those changes mean for American culture and values.
So how do you interpret those changes? What do you think they say about us? Well, I think one big shift is how mobile our society has become. Families are spread out all over the country, so getting everyone together for Thanksgiving is tougher now.
That's true. It's not as simple as everyone just driving down the road to grandma's house anymore.
And I think that impacts the sense of tradition and connection that's so important to Thanksgiving.
Right. And then you've got the commercialization factor. It's hard to ignore the pressure to buy, especially during the holiday season.
It's true. And that can overshadow the simple act of giving thanks, which is what Thanksgiving is supposed to be all about.
So how do we find a balance? How do we stay true to the spirit of Thanksgiving without getting lost in the chaos of modern life?
I think it's about being intentional about our choices and focusing on what truly matters to us. Maybe it's spending quality time with loved ones or volunteering in our communities or simply taking a moment to reflect on all the good things in our lives.
I like that. It's not about a picture-perfect Thanksgiving or following every single tradition. It's about finding what resonates with you and making the holiday meaningful in your own way.
Exactly. Thanksgiving doesn't have to look the same for everyone. It's about embracing the spirit of gratitude and togetherness in whatever form that takes for you.
And I think that's a beautiful message. It's a reminder that even though traditions evolve, the heart of Thanksgiving can stay the same.
Absolutely. It's about appreciating what we have, connecting with those we love, and giving thanks for all the good in our lives.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Thanksgiving, we want to hear from you. What are your favorite Thanksgiving traditions? How do you make the holiday meaningful for you and your family?
We've explored a lot today, from the surprising origins of Thanksgiving to its evolution as a national holiday and the iconic traditions we celebrate today. But the conversation doesn't end here.
We'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, your reflections on this Thanksgiving season. What are you grateful for?
From both of us, we wish you a very happy Thanksgiving, filled with joy, delicious food, and meaningful connections with your loved ones.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.